Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Taurus for January 2017. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, see what's new on my blog, and if you would love to learn astrology with me, my astrology apprenticeship program is enrolling again in January, as well as my Creating Successful Online Business course. So what's going on in this new month, in this new year? We're walking right into the new year in the middle of a retrograde, Mercury retrograde, which might give us a little bit of a sleepy start. So don't get down on yourself if your New Year's resolutions are not quite taking flight yet. If they are, great. I will definitely never limit you and tell you whatever you're ever feeling like, bettering yourself in any way. It's always a great time to do that. And at the same time, it might take a little bit more time for you to feel like you're ready to move forward. And if that's the case, then you are in line with the natural planetary rhythms. So it's all good. So we've got this long wall of retrogrades ahead of us into May. I'm going to go into more details about that. We're kind of standing on the edge of the abyss here in January. But first I want to talk about something specific for Taurus. I'm calling the theme for Taurus for this month, the big stretch. And this is because there is a focus on the ninth house. The ninth house has to do with, well, it's ruled by Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is the widest spreading sign energy in the whole zodiac. It is very broad. It is very diverse. It is very expansive. It's ruled by Jupiter, which expands everything it touches. So when you have focus in this house, and this is especially true at first in the beginning of the month for early degree placements. So if your birthday's in the first 10 days, or if you're watching for your rising sign like 0 to 9 degrees. But it's going, in the coming weeks after that, it's going to be true for all Taurus placements. And I'll get to a place where you're for the middle and later degree placements. I'll talk about where you're starting the month out at before you get to this ninth house energy here in a minute. So the energy of Sagittarius has to do with teaching, learning, expanding your horizons, changing your perspectives. It has to do with religion, philosophy, studying anything that gives you a bigger picture on something. It has to do with international business, international connections, different countries, different cultures, different languages. So you might see any and all of these things coming up for you. Also, it has to do with writing and editing and public speaking and sharing a message in a big way. And different countries, different languages, even just anything having to do with something different or something foreign to you. So I have an affirmation, actually I have 2 affirmations for you this month. I love affirmations. I've used them over very, very many years. And I've seen over time that all the things that I was working with as far as affirmations became my reality. And this is because you imprint the subconscious mind when you use affirmations. We're having our subconscious minds imprinted all the time by things that we don't really want to be imprinted by. But this use of affirmations can counteract some of that and can help use the latent potential of your mind, which is the power source for creation. You can get that into gear and direct it by using affirmations. So for the ninth house, for this energy, the big stretch for Taurus this month, my affirmation for you is, I stretch my perspectives in new and wonderful ways. So if you just keep that in the forefront of your mind, that everything small and big that comes to you comes in your field. I stretch my perspectives in new and wonderful ways. If you're interested in having a visual version of this, you can go to my Instagram account, Annie Botticelli Instagram, and over the weeks after I post these videos, which is always a month early, I'll be posting pretty pictures with these affirmations so that you can have a visual to assist you with your work with these. So the middle to later degree placement, so that's basically the rest of you, after the first 10 days of the sign, birthdays of the sign, from like 10 to 29 degrees, you will have this energy coming. And you start out the month with a strong focus still in the 8th house, which has to do with the unknown. So for you, I wrote, I embrace the unknown with the spirit of a great adventurer. And this is in many ways kind of linked to this ninth house, where the ninth house is like out there and the eighth house is like in here, the great unknown in here, the great unknown out there, which it winds up all being the same anyway, but there's an energetic division within the signs that kind of show a difference in focus. So this eighth house has to do with deep personal relationships. So there could be focus there coming up for you, deepening of intimacy, showing of areas that are blocking you as far as trying to move forward with intimacy. If you are a Taurus that does too much, then sometimes you might not consciously be holding it against other people, but it could happen. And I'm not making any scathing generalizations that all people with Taurus placements do this. It's not true. We're so much more than our sun sign. The sun sign is actually just a very minuscule part of how energy moves through us. There's so much focus put on sun sign astrology because that's all people really know about themselves. They don't really know where their other planets are, so there aren't as many resources available for the other stuff, but we are so much more than our sun sign is the point. But if you are a Taurus that does too much, and this relates to this eighth house, it's really easy to block intimacy. So if you are one of these people, I give you a homework assignment to watch Disney's The Princess and the Frog. And if you've seen it before, then watch it again. And the energy of Taurus is the energy of Tiana. So Princess Tiana is the energy of Taurus. And what you're trying to cultivate and what is coming up at this time is the energy of Scorpio. So where she started out was the energy of Taurus, and where she ends up at the end of the movie is the highest vibration of Scorpio. So I'll say that, every sign, every placement, every planet has a range of potential expressions. There's no sign that's better than any other sign. There are positive and negative potentials within each sign. So as we evolve on our paths, like Princess Tiana did, she had some good aspects of Taurus that she started with, but she also had some challenging ones. And at the end, she embodied the positive aspects of Taurus and the positive aspects of its opposing counterpart, Scorpio. If you look at a chart, Taurus and in the second house and Scorpio in the eighth house, they oppose one another. They have this rich relationship. So that's what's up for this month for Taurus energy. There is also a long-term focus for early degree placements on the 11th house. The 11th house has to do with humanitarian efforts, the greater good, the community projects, the internet, social media. And if you're trying to do something for people, like you have a community-based project, but you haven't yet linked it very well to the internet, then this could be part of what's happening in the backdrop for you, that you've got to get it online. You can do so much more for what you're trying to do for your community, if your community is not already an online community, by tapping into online resources. The Neptune there really wants to dissolve out how you looked at community before and really raise it up several octaves. There's a strong focus in the long term. These planets, Neptune and the transiting South Node, that are in the 11th house for early degree placements. For the middle and late degree placements, actually the middle degree placements also have that Neptune and South Node in the 11th house. So all the stuff that I just talked about for the early degree placements, as far as the community and getting stuff online and working with humanitarian efforts, that is a strong focus for middle degree placements as well. For the later degree placements, that energy is still in your 10th house. So it has more to do with how you're walking individually in the world. If you look at the energies of each of the signs, they move in a stepwise fashion through our continuous evolution, the continued circular spiraling evolution that we go through. So before you get to the place where you can really help the world, you have to establish yourself first in some way. You know, you have to get certain things intact for yourself if you're trying to do well with your work so that you can have money and resources and attention to help others. That's what this energy is about. So the later degree placements in Taurus have this strong focus on establishing yourself. If you have these big visions to help other people and you're not quite yet established yourself, these planetary placements are working in the backdrop slowly over time, helping you to get to where you need to be individually in the world so that your bigger projects can take flight. So those are things specific for Taurus. Now I want to talk about the good dates if you want to push through a launch or get some things done after this first part of retrograde that started in December and went into January before we get strong into the next retrogrades, which I'm going to go into all the details of that. So we'll talk about the good dates, we'll talk about challenges and how you can best max out the general transits. So I'm calling the month of January 2017. The theme for all signs is the edge of the abyss. We start out the month in the middle of the first of a series of personal planets being retrograde. Personal planets are the ones that are closest to us. So really the ones that are relevant here are Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Whenever one of those planets appears as if it's going backwards in the sky, of course they never really do go backwards in their orbit, but from our position on the Earth, if you were watching it in the sky, it would look like it was going backwards. That period of time, called a retrograde, lends itself into going backwards and going in deep. Some people have made the mistake of thinking you can't do anything during a retrograde cycle. It is totally not true, and I'm going to go into more details about that. But basically this energy of being on the edge of the abyss in this Mercury retrograde that is welcoming us as we start this new year. Then on January 8th, Mercury goes direct, and then at the end of January, the shadow period for Venus retrograde starts. Venus rules love and beauty and money. So the energies ruling, or the energies regarding those topics all tend to go backwards. But there's also a shadow period before the actual retrograde. So even though Venus is not retrograde until March 4th, and that's through April 15th, at the end of January, it's already warming up. You know, it's kind of like when you're on your way somewhere, maybe you're at a place not in the forest, okay, and you're driving and there are no trees around, then all of a sudden you start seeing a couple of trees here and there, and you know that when you go deeper, you're going to be covered with trees on both sides of the road, you know, but it's kind of like the trees are starting to show up, and you're getting that vibe of going into the woods, and that's what the retrograde is like, and that's what the shadow periods are like. So just as Mercury starts to be clear of its shadow period, Venus's shadow period starts. And then we get into full-on Venus retrograde, and then just as Venus goes direct in the middle of April, we start the shadow period for the next Mercury retrograde, and then it's not till May 19th that Venus is completely clear of its retrograde cycle, and it's not till May 21st that Mercury is completely clear of its retrograde cycle. So you can see why I call this time in January the edge of the abyss, and why, if you've listened to my horoscopes for a while, you can see why I was pushing you to push as many things forward into the world in the launch period, November through like December 3rd or so, because these energies want to go back and they want to go in. An analogy that I've been thinking of that really reminds me of the energy of what we're standing before. As I was stating earlier, it's a huge mistake to think you can't do anything in a retrograde. There is so much to do, there's plenty to do, and there are some things that it's actually good to do those things. You can get some specifics on Mercury retrograde by watching my video for that transit. You can also watch my video for Venus retrograde to get more details about specifics for that transit. I'll give some general retrograde energies here. But it's like if you want to clean out your kitchen, right? Maybe it's not too messy when you get in there, but when you start taking stuff out of the cabinets and spreading all the clean surfaces with the stuff from the cabinets in order to get everything out, throw stuff away, wipe the surfaces inside the cabinets, you create a righteous mess, right? In order to meet the objective, which is to have a truly clean kitchen that feels really good, getting rid of stagnant energy, clearing out things you don't need, making room for new.
So although we're not starting this new year in an energy with a lot of newness coming in, we definitely have a major opportunity to go in deep and clear those things out. So I know for myself, I'm going to be very busy during these retrograde cycles, and I'm going to take everything in my house and all of my things out and clear them out. And by the time the energies go direct, I won't have complained because I didn't have any shortage of things to do during this retrograde cycle. It's just the new things, the launches. If there's something you've been doing all along, like for instance, I teach creating successful online business course, and I teach an astrology apprenticeship program. I've been teaching these for a while. So you'll see my launches come out in the midst of these retrograde energies, but they're not new and they're short-term programs. That's another thing to know about these new, the warnings to not do new things during the retrogrades. That's really a warning to not do long-term things. If you want to try something on or do a trial period or do something for a short amount of time that's not intended to have longevity, it's perfect. It's fine. You can play, you can experiment, etc. And it's a wonderful time to do that. You can have different experiences, and it's like a no commitment type of thing. If you go in thinking I'm going to be doing this for a certain number of years and it's going to be exactly how we're talking about right now, it's just not going to be that way. It's going to change and evolve, and that's the nature of the retrogrades. So, just keep that keynote of being on the edge of the abyss, keeping the understandings that things might have to get a little messier in your life before they can become clearer, but that this is really what's needed. It's really what's needed to get you closer to the things that you want to do, the experiences that you want to have. So, another good point about this retrograde cycle is to try to get your taxes done early. If you can submit them, like at the end of, I know you have to wait for some tax documents at the end of January, but as soon into February as possible, have all your ducks in a row, it's going to be much easier for you because April 15th is the tax day that everything is due, but that's the end of Venus retrograde, and money things are going to be, affected by this. So you might want to try to get that done. Something else really great about retrogrades is that when you are taking everything out to look at it again, you often find a lot of gems, things that you totally forgot about. If you're a writer, maybe if you're clearing out old files, you find some things that could be usable for a current project, or that you feel inspired to go back and start getting into again. This happens all the time. Either something that you find or something comes back to you through someone else mentioning it, or something floats in your field in some way from the past, then you get back on it and you bring it to a different level. It's like something coming back from the past that you work on. But you often will find a lot of gems, so contacting people from the past, going through things from the past, clearing out stuff is one of the best things you can do during retrogrades. And then you'll be in a much better position for launching when the stars are great again, which is like May 21st is really, there might be a couple of dates before then that could work, but that's the day that the Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde is clear. So you've got from May 21st through July 25th, free of personal planet retrogrades. And as we get closer to those days, I'll give you, challenging dates and good dates around in that time period. But I just want to give you an overview for the year so you have a snapshot of what we're looking at. Then we have another retrograde cycle between July 26th and October 6th, and then we're clear again from October 7th through November 5th. So essentially you've got 2 good launching periods this year. And then you might want to take advantage of that and line things up that way. So, let's see, I want to give you the good dates. I say good dates. These are dates that have sweet aspects that are occurring. And note that some of the dates I give you that could carry sweetness are also some of the same dates that could bring challenges or drama. Because on some days we have certain really good aspects and certain challenging aspects at the same time. I'm going to give you the dates, but note that sometimes we feel the energy of a transit before or after the day it actually occurs. So sometimes the exact date isn't as relevant as the time period. I'm not going to list all of why these dates carry sweetness or challenges. You can see more details about that when you sign up for my free email newsletter, which is on my website, anniehelpsyou.com. I do a write-up for the month before that gives the theme of the month, themes, keynotes, sweet days, challenging days, as well as the actual aspects that make those sweet or challenging, with a little bit of explanation as to why and what's happening there. So you can get that for free on my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Okay, so you might find sweetness on or around January 3rd, January 6th and 7th, January 20th, 23rd, 28th, and 29th. But a big star around January 29th January 28th, because this is the Chinese New Year and the new moon in Aquarius. So if you have to push something through that you could not push through in my suggested time frame that ran until December 3rd, then this might be a date that could work for you, because it's dancing right between some challenging aspects, but it has a lot of good energy for forward momentum. So if you have to push something through or do a follow-up for something that you had already started, that could be a date that you could slip in. Really, the end of January and the beginning of February, if you have anything that you're going to have to push through that you didn't do in the window through the beginning of December, that's going to be your best time, because you're only going to get deeper into the Venus retrograde as you get deeper into February. So it's going to be pretty retrograde-y until May after that. But it will still have effects because it's right in the middle of all this, but it's your best bet if you have to do something. So the dates to have extra care, or where there might be challenges or drama, are January 5th through 12th, the 19th, the 27th through the 29th, and the 31st. Okay, so definitely check out my blogs, my new moon, making powerful wishes for each of the new moons on my website, anniehelpsyou.com. You can also check out my courses, my coach certification course, my creating successful online business course, and my astrology apprenticeship program. My astrology apprenticeship program and my creating successful online business courses will be re-enrolling. They have been closed for enrollment. They will be re-enrolling in January. So you can check that out, and maybe you'll want to join me to do these professional certification courses. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I will see you next month.